back to another episode of the Ground Up Podcast. My name is Matt Walton with my co-host here, Matt Huber. We have a great guest today. I think you guys are really going to enjoy. Just from talking to the past 10 minutes, you can tell the transparency, the energy, the enthusiasm. You get a lot of passion coming from this guy as well. He is the founder/VP of X8, which is a website builder, a website company, and an SEO service to help you guys get quality websites, SEO. We're going to learn more about that as we go through this. It takes a lot of pride in being an American-owned and American-first company based out of Texas. He also got a history of Chick-fil-A, too, we're going to learn about also. Jay Choquette, how you doing today?
What's going on, boys? You doing all right?
What's up, man? We're doing fantastic, man. I'm excited to get you on here and to share your story with our team. So maybe where I'd like to start the conversation is just kind of like, where you and I had an opportunity to meet and kind of connect in our life. And kind of go from the story from there. I know you have a long story before that, but you and I met, I'd say probably about 2-3 years ago in a little jiu-jitsu gym, and Jay was the big guy in the gym.
2-3 years ago? You realize that was like 7-8 years ago, right?
7-8 years ago.
Yeah, dude, that was like 7-8 years ago, man.
Yeah, you're a black belt now, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. I was a white belt when you met me. Still.
Yeah. You just had gotten your blue belt when that happened. So congratulations on your black belt, by the way.
Thank you.
And yeah, Jay was the big guy in the gym that come from a wrestling background, but was hiding behind that white belt, still being able to beat up most of the upper belts there in the gym. And I got to know a little bit about Jay. And one of the first things I got to know about Jay was that he was an entrepreneur and ran his own business. And I think at that point, you were still fairly new into that venture. Is that correct, Jay?
Yeah. Well, I had done this. I had done web design and the branding and marketing consulting thing for a while before that. And then I had stepped back into the corporate world for a couple years. And then shortly after, you and I had met, shortly thereafter, I decided to go back out onto my own again because I realized that I just the red tape of the corporate world and I just at my core I don't work well in that red tape atmosphere, as you know well.
Yeah. What was it about the red tape that didn't fit your personality? I have a good idea, but for our audience, what didn't work for you?
Inefficiency is the number one. It's like you guys, as I am literally, I'm the guy that sits here on the, I sit here with me on meetings with Fortune 500s all the time in a straw cowboy hat. It's about inefficiency and the lack of freedom. You're in the corporate red tape. You have to tiptoe around everybody's feelings and around everybody's agendas and everybody's need to put their fingerprint on every piece and every project. To the point where it becomes so inefficient that you're not actually getting shit done anymore. And for me, that was really, really incredibly frustrating. I'm a big believer in the keep what you kill mentality, that if you're willing to put forth more effort, you should be rewarded with more accordingly. And the people that are getting in the way, like just in the corporate world, it's just so all too often that we see that people that aren't really working that hard are dragging down the people in your organization that are really getting after it and get things done. And I think that's what happens to a lot of bigger corporations as they get larger, is you lose a lot of your best talent because they want to be somewhere where they can make a difference and they can be agile and pivot accordingly.
So Matt, I know that you and I have spoken a lot and you kind of always knew that you were going to be an entrepreneur, but Jay, did you kind of always have that entrepreneur in you, or is this something that kind of just burned a hole into you after that corporate years of being frustrated?
It just kind of naturally occurred for me. I originally when I was younger, I wanted to go to the military actually, and then I realized very early on that I don't do that well with authority. Hence my lack of my corporate nature. I don't do well with authority because too often in life I've found that people that are in authoritative positions aren't necessarily the most intelligent person in the room. Sometimes authority does not have a direct linear relationship with intelligence. And once again, right, it's just me. I'm like, dude, get out of my way. Like, let me get this done. Are we going to get this done? Are you going to get out of my way? Like, what are we going to do here? So, and it just kind of happened. I went through school. I went through college, got a degree in marketing, spent a lot of time in consumer behavior psychology and sales pieces, and went to work right out of college, went to work for a big company called LexisNexis. A lot of you guys have probably heard of. That was my first job out of college, and I didn't last but a few months. I right off the bat, me and the red tape did not get along. I was way too forward and open with my personality, and they didn't like me in a hustle. And but luckily enough, at the time, I had actually done such a good job on some group projects while I was in college. I actually got contacted by a few clients that we'd worked with on real projects. I had an incredible marketing professor and sales professors in college, and they actually brought in real small businesses for local small businesses, and had us actually do marketing and branding projects to get these guys up and running and get them set up. And I did such a good job for a few of them that they contacted me afterwards and said, "Hey, you want to run this for us?" I was like, I guess I'm going to be a marketing consultant. So here we are, and so it just kind of naturally happened for me right off the rip. It's just where I belong, I think.
So speaking of how you handle that now, because you are a founder and you are in a position of authority, how do you handle your team now? Do they think the same way that you think about? Does your team think the same way about you as you do about authority now, or how do you handle all that?
I think controlled growth for our particular setup is important because quality is important, and it's very hard to maintain quality and grow too fast. I mean, you can grow your numbers, but growing your team is a different thing. Learning how to grow your numbers effectively and with efficiency by having an efficient team, that's very, very doable. We've done a great job with that, and it's exciting. But when it comes to growing the size of your actual team itself, I think that's something where it's been a struggle for us because we have such a high expectation, and everybody on my team is such an all-star. So it actually makes it hard for us to grow. But I would say that, pretty much everybody on my team, they all have an entrepreneurial mentality. I really look for that in the people that we work with. Nobody on my team gets a salary, myself included. Every single person in my organization is a 1099 contractor, but they also get a ridiculous commission on everything that they work on in exchange for that. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to keep our overhead low, offer better pricing to our customers, but still provide a great value. But instead of spending all that extra money on all the advertising and marketing and Facebook ads and all the other stuff that you can easily waste a lot of money on, the overhead of offices and things like that, we cut all that out, and I just give a massive commission to my team. My salespeople get a 33% sales commission. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
But it works great for them, and they love it. I love it. But we all get to be free. They don't have set hours. My team has no set hours. Anybody that's doing calling, they just have to do it between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. so they're not bugging people late. No calling on Sundays, just because I think that's a little distasteful, to cold call people on Sundays.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just, what I've learned is that the more freedom I've given my team, if you have the right people, you don't really have to manage them that hard. They're going to do the right thing. They're going to take good care of your clients. They're going to make the right decisions, or they're going to ask you for your help when you need it. And it's just cool, man. I've been able to give a lot of freedom by just getting good people, great people, I actually must say, because my people aren't good, they're great. And just having great people that have that mindset. You don't have to manage them. They're gonna do the right thing. And I actually, I'm actually the exact opposite of the customer's always right.
Yeah.
My team jokingly calls it Jay's blowtorch. Mm-hmm. If somebody comes sideways at somebody on my team, I'm going to take a look at it because I already know that there's a 90% likelihood that one of two things have happened. Either we made a mistake and we'll make sure it's right and we'll fix it and we'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. Or, the client is being, wildly either inappropriate, disrespectful, or delusional in expectations. Mm-hmm. Even though we always, as salespeople and as managers, right, we always try to manage expectations effectively. But some people are just going to have a certain idea in your head. But, every once in a long blue moon, you get one of those that just is going to be a certain way, no matter what you do. They're usually the cheapest clients. They give you the biggest headaches, right? Yeah. You know how that goes. Yeah. It's always the cheapest one, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to spend $400 with you, but my family and my business's well-being is based on your performance on this, and I'm going to bug you every 30 seconds for the next 6 months of your life for everything that I need you to do for me.
Yep.
Yeah. $50,000 client, it's like, checks in the mail, thanks. Right?
So you're hitting on a lot of points that I'm actually excited about, because that's how as I became a business owner and I grew my team. That's how I wanted to run my business. I want to hire people that I can trust. I don't have to look over constantly. You need to be at your desk this time to this time. You need to do all this like in a row.
Yeah.
I want to trust that you're going to get it done. I don't have to look over you constantly, because we all have things that we need to do. So speaking on that, because well, I'm going to ask you this question later on as we go through the rapid fire questions, but I'm interested to know, because you spoke about this a little bit beforehand, why VP? You're a founder of the company. Why did you move to VP versus being a president, CEO, on that type of
One, I work in IT, and anytime you have any kind of an executive name in IT related, you're going to get absolutely hammered by the Indian spammer guys. It's just the truth. It's just truth. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or hateful, but it's just true. Those guys are relentless. I worked in IT recruiting. I know how competitive that business is, and they just hammer you. And if you have IT and any kind of executive title or anything like that, I mean, you're just getting crushed. And LinkedIn sold us all out, boys. If y'all didn't know, they sold all of our information. They sold all of our, they sold all of our emails, and they sold all of our phone numbers. And they can say that they didn't, but I know that they did. Or they, at least at the very minimum, did not secure that information, so it was not easily scrapable. Mm-hmm. Wink, wink. But yeah. So anytime you have anything IT related, and you show yourself as the owner or the president or a high level executive, you're just going to get crushed. And so, partially, it was literally as to try and avoid getting spammed as much from salespeople and IT recruiting companies. But part of it too is that I don't tell, some people tell me, they're like, oh, well, I work for Jay, or I work for this guy. And I'm like, no, you don't. You work with me. I don't look at anybody on my team as somebody that works for me. I work with them. We're in this together. We win or fail together. You're right. We lose, we succeed. We're all in this together, right? That's why I give 33%. My structure, I'm so transparent. I'll tell you guys, my structure, whenever I do, if we do a $3,000 website, $1,000 of that goes to my salesperson for selling it. $1,000 of that goes to my developer who's going to develop it and build it for me, that is done through with our tools and our systems, and $1,000 minus expenses is going to go to my company. We split it a third, as fair as you can do it. So we're all in this together, and so that's the other reason why I do it, is because I have other people in my organization that are set up as VPs, because I consider them my equals. I trust their judgment. I trust the value that they bring to the table. Tiffany is on my team, man. Dude, Tiffany, my operations, Matt, Uber's met her. Dude, she is an absolute rock star. She kept X8 alive when I was in the hospital. I mean, I just have such an incredible team that, how dare I be the person to be like, I'm your boss? No, I'm not. I'm your friend. I'm your coworker. I'm not your boss. Like, we're all in this together, homie. Let's go. That's
awesome. It's interesting.
So those are two primary reasons why.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting to say that, because both Matt and I, in the organization that we're creating, one of the big things we really, really are bullish on, which is trying to explain to people, I'm not looking for an employee. I'm looking for future business partners. Now, a lot of these people are going to come in very entry level, very green. And so there is a level of a hierarchy initially, but we're looking to develop people into people that are our equals, people that are going to stand next to us, not behind us or not in front of us, right? And that's ultimately what we're looking for in this world, is how many people can you have standing next to you that are going to fight the same fight at the same level you're going to fight it at.
In every relationship you have, your partner, your spouse, your teammates, your brothers, your sisters, your coworkers, all of them, every relationship in your life should be like that, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. So, Jay, one thing I know about you is I know you're a fighter. And obviously, we talked about our initial way that we met each other, and I know that you toyed into a little bit of MMA. You've done a lot of jiu-jitsu competitions, and I think that you really dove into the jiu-jitsu side over the past 5 to 10 years. Even so that when you moved out to Fredericksburg, you started a jiu-jitsu gym. What is about jiu-jitsu that really just kind of calls your name?
So I apologize in advance, because I'm going to use a few words along the way in this podcast, guys. So. Jiu-jitsu does a couple of things, in my opinion. It gives you something physical to do that's healthy in a number of ways, right? Just doing physical activity in and of itself has been proven scientifically over and over again to make you healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all these things. But it's also something that a lot of people don't realize that jiu-jitsu requires intelligence. You got to be smart. You can't just run in there and just be a big meathead and run around there and it doesn't. Those guys don't do well. It's chess with your body, really, is what jiu-jitsu really is. But it does so much more than that, because I look at I'm what you could call a naturalist in some ways, and I think that most human behaviors can be traced back to a natural instinct of some nature. And as human beings, we're still mammals, and we were built to feed, fucking fight. That's the truth. And if we don't do those things, if we don't do these natural instincts, if we don't placate them in healthy ways, they're going to come out in unhealthy ways, right? Eating disorders, sexual manifestations, addiction to pornography and online content, right? All these different things, if we don't eat in a healthy way or find a healthy outlet for it, if we don't find a healthy way to get that aggression out somewhere in a positive way, if we don't find somewhere to get our sexual tendencies and things like that out in positive ways, they're going to come out in negative ways. And the beauty about jiu-jitsu to me is that it gives you a safe-ish way of getting that aggression and that physical need out, particularly as guys. Women as well, but I feel like men tend to need it a little bit more on the aggression side to kind of get that kind of nature out. There's something very primal and very real about just getting into a fight every once in a while, and it just kind of gets the poison out. And the beauty about jiu-jitsu is that you can do it without taking concussions, which is why I pushed more towards the jiu-jitsu side of things in general. I did MMA a lot. I had the pleasure of getting to train under Saif Saud at Fortis MMA for a while. I love MMA. I really loved it. But the problem was I was one of those guys that kind of sat in between the amateur and the pro guys. So every amateur guy is trying to take my head off every round, and so it's like I was getting concussions. And it was affecting my ability to run my business. I was getting foggy, it was affecting, and I had to come to the understanding. It's like, look, I'm not going to the UFC. I'm too old. Truth. Yeah, right. Do I, would I like to think that I'm a savage? Yeah, but still, like, we all saw what just happened to Tyson. I mean, when you're older, you're older. Like, Father Time always wins. But the concussions were starting to affect me, and so I talked to him, and he was very, he's gracious. Toughest coach I've ever trained under. Incredibly brilliant though, super just tough as nails, but he's got a much bigger heart than a lot of people realize and give him credit for. But yeah, so I talked to him and I said, hey, I coach, I'm sorry, but I think I need to focus more on the jiu-jitsu thing. Less concussions is better for my health, because I had to realize that fighting was my hobby, not my living.
Yeah.
And so I had to take a little bit of dose of humility on that, because I took a lot of pride in being a fighter, so to speak, and so I focused more on the jiu-jitsu thing, dove really head first, really super hard into that, towards, going to Worlds, and I won a world championship at Purple, Master 1, or Master 2, is it Masters? But some people say, oh, that doesn't really count because it wasn't black belt yet, but the guy that I had to beat was the current Grand Slam champion and currently number 1 ranked in the world in our division, so I didn't exactly have an easy road to win, but yeah. So I chose jiu-jitsu because it gets those things out in a healthy way. And on the back wall of our gym, I have a phrase that I wrote. Now a lot of people think it's like Sun Tzu, Art of War, or something like that. But the name of our gym is War Room Jiu-Jitsu, and the back wall, I wrote it because during COVID we were training in the garage. This is when they shut all the gyms down, and that's where War Room started. And on the back wall, I wrote a quote and said, "Here we go to war, so that we may find peace." And I think that applies in everything we do, right? Like you gotta hammer down. You gotta get these things out, and that's what's going to help you find your peace.
One of the other things, real quick, one other thing, Matt. One of the other things I love about jiu-jitsu personally, in the time that I did, and I walked away from it with a similar realization of you. I was never a guy who really had interest in doing competition. I did it for fitness, for fun, and I also like to. The challenge of competition in a controlled environment. One of the things I always found so great about jiu-jitsu, and I would almost suggest anybody, especially somebody with an ego, to do it, which is the humbling side of jiu-jitsu.
Man, oh yeah. It will humble you.
I love nothing more than that 250-pound muscle man coming into the gym, and then the coach putting that guy with a 120-pound purple belt woman, and she ties his ass in a knot. There's nothing better
absolutely.
than that experience. You want to talk a little bit more about that, Jay, on just how humbling jiu-jitsu can be for somebody?
It is, absolutely. You know, I've got one of my students actually at my school that we have. Her name is Nix. She's about 110, 115 pound. 18-year-old girl now. She started this when she was 16. And my favorite thing to do is to bring these new 200-pound plus guys in here. And they come in there with that ego and they think they're going to be hard. And we weed guys, you know, we weed them out of our gym pretty quickly, as you could probably imagine knowing me and how I operate. The ego doesn't last very long there, which is funny because ego is something that I've struggled a lot in my life over, and I had to take some lessons in that myself as well. But, one thing, I love having those guys come in and just Nick's she's all over them like a spider monkey, man. She's just whooping their ass. And it's funny because right off the bat, you can see the guys and you see the wheels turning and you see the ones that are like, maybe I'm not as tough as I think I am. Maybe I need to learn this. And then you have the other guys where you see like it's just something in their ego just kind of breaks. And they put their tail between their legs and they run away and they never come back. And I'm okay with that because ultimately it's not for everybody and that's fine. But the people that their egos are like that, those are the people that it's dangerous to teach that kind of skill set to. Because those are the kind of people that may become strong physically, but if they're weak emotionally and mentally, then those are the kind of people that are going to become bullies and hurt innocent people or use the things that I teach them to hurt somebody that doesn't deserve to be hurt. And don't get me wrong, like if somebody comes at you sideways at you or your family, beat the hell out of them, dude. Screw that. Like, but don't be the instigator. Don't be the person that's going after other people that haven't done anything wrong, right? Don't be the one to kill a mockingbird. Don't be that guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, so speaking about, throughout your life and getting humbled and things like that, I'm interested to know the journey of Jay and how you started as a 10-year-old up until when you got to the point where you are now. Just tell me back to the 10-year-old Jay.
Now, let me preface this, Jay, because when we ask this question, what typically happens is a 30-minute rambling session here. So I'll stop it and say...
I'll do it in 5.
Yeah, do little pieces, right? Do little breakup parts.
So... when I was younger, I guess I watched too many Disney movies or something. I was always obsessed with the underdog. I was a real small kid growing up when I was young, which is funny because you see like the size I grew to later on. And Matt's like, he's the big guy. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a small kid, right? It's like I was really small growing up. I was really smart. I got put into gifted. I got tested into the gifted program really, really young. And they had this beta program where I was growing up, and it was based around every single year. This beta program was you were put in gifted advanced courses, but its focus every single year consistently was on public speaking and leadership skills. I can truly say it was called Lead. It really set me up for success for the rest of my life, and it's one of the reasons why I truly believe that one of the best skill sets you can give young people and entrepreneurs is giving them public speaking and leadership capabilities, because it just does so much. It's crazy how many things it affects positively. But I was a nerd, man. I read a lot of books. I was reading like Michael Crichton Andromeda Strain in like the 9th grade, and like I was a super nerdy kid. I got beat up a lot. I went to this middle school in Georgia called Gardner Newman Middle School, and it was a really well-known school. Like the 2 high schools in our county were really well-known. They went to state almost every year. There was actually a couple guys that went to my middle school team that actually went to the NFL. There was a guy who later, his name was Bruce Thornton, later became a cornerback for the NFL many, many years later. Actually, Dallas Cowboys, of all places. And we were in middle school, and these guys were so much bigger than me. These guys were in like the 7th and 8th grade, and they had mustaches, man. These guys had mustaches. And I was so much smaller than them. I'll never forget, that guy picked me up and put me over his knee like a backbreaker and smashed me and threw me on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I remember our coach at the time, I was trying to play football and trying to get into sports, and I was a nerdy kid, and I remember my coach pulling me aside because I was getting into fights all the time. And he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you always getting in all these fights?" I'm like, "Because they're picking on me." He's like, "Well, just walk away." I'm like, "I'm not built that way. I'm just not wired this way." And so I was just always fighting from the bottom up, when I was younger, and no offense to Bruce or any of those guys, it's just kids being kids, I got beat up, and so growing up, once I got into high school, I was still getting beat up by guys when I was a freshman and a sophomore. I got picked on, I got bullied so much on the football team that I quit. Like guys trying to like crap in my cleats and stuff. Like I got heavily bullied, and I just and it's funny. It's like looking back, I still remember to this day the exact names of the people that were nice to me, and the people that were bullies. I'll never forget. There was a guy named Bubba Barrett. I grew up with always, just being a dirty lineman, always holding your jersey and doing dirty stuff and everything. And then when you confront him, he's just, I literally got bullied by him and like his, and his buddies and his cousins and stuff. And then there was like a group of girls that were upperclassmen above me that were actually really nice to me. Chandra Hickory, shout out. Chandra was like super nice to me. But these are the people you remember for the rest of your life, And I think that's important for all of us to remember is that the things that you do, even at a young age to other people, they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. And so those guys bullying me and picking on me, I got tired of it. So I got into wrestling. I was terrible. I was 3 wins and 12 losses my first year. And in my second year, I'd gone to some camps and stuff. I was 26 and 12, 26 wins and 12 losses my second year. And then my third year, my junior year, I was like something like 56 and 4 or something like that, right around that area. So just really stepped up really, really fast, picked it up, understood, country boy strength started to come into play. So I started to get stronger, started to get bigger. And suddenly I'm not the guy getting picked on anymore. And so what happened is as I graduated high school and I started getting tougher, getting bigger, I started beating these guys down. And I took it too far the other way. I got into college. I became, was doing MMA and, taking amateur fights and stuff. And then I got really, really cocky. And so pretty much, from that point forward, after graduating college and everything, I basically, realized I'm like, okay, I had become the guy that I hated. I'd become the person that had made me that way. And so I really struggled the rest of my life, like trying to find that balance between ego and arrogance and actual real confidence. And so, so that's what led me to become a fighter, and kind of really that was basically my driving passion all the way through life is I just refused to quit. I'm just not built that way. I was just never made that way. I can't take credit for it. It's just the way I'm wired, man. And that's what led into everything else with business and fighting and then the rec and everything else. So,
yeah, so you mentioned the rec, and I think this is, I would tell you your last year it's been an inspiration to me, and I know you probably hear that from a bunch of people. And I might take it a slightly different direction than where you're used to, but so if you can talk to everybody on here kind of about what happened and like what came out of that, like in the next 3 to 6 months, the journey you've been through over the past year.
Okay. Everything was going good with XA. Everything was doing well. We moved to Dallas. We lived there for a while, and then I guess it was about 3 years ago, got the world championship under the belt, and we moved down to Fredericksburg, Texas, and I was incredibly lucky to meet a gentleman named Kevin Avery from the Avery family, like Avery Jewelry, the grandson. He doesn't like, he's the most humble human being I've ever met in my life. He doesn't like attention, but I'm going to say thank you, Kevin, for everything you've done for so many people around you and my family, man. But they had a small gym. It was called Black Label Jiu-Jitsu. And they needed some help with marketing. They needed some leadership and some fire and stuff. And so I talked to Kevin and I started coaching down here for free to help them out. And shortly thereafter, Kevin said, Jay, you're kind of what we need around here. And so he made me an incredible offer and basically donated the gym to us that we have. And it's insane, like the kindness of this human being, man. Like, I mean, I can't even put it into words. You meet people that do kind things for a number of different reasons, but there's some people in this world that are just kind souls. They say that there are evil people in this world that are just made that way, but the vice versa is also true, man. And Kevin Avery's one of those humans, man. One of the greatest humans I've ever met in my life. So he basically gifted us the gym pretty much. And so I took it over and was training and so I was just down here, running the web design company and, living my life and got my Ducati but I was struggling internally a bit because that cockiness, right? That arrogance. It's like, I'm like the baddest man around town. I'm riding around on my Ducati, think I'm cool, and I'm jacked, and I'm struggling because I don't want to be a cocky human. I genuinely want to help people, and that's what's in my heart. But I found myself, interestingly enough, disabled at the time, not knowing it, because the way I carried myself and the way I appeared and the way I came across could turn a lot of people away from me and disable me from being able to help them because the way because of my initial, just the initial reaction that people typically could have to me, so we were things were going good though. I was crushing it, and everything was going good in life, and then ran into some issues where my former jiu-jitsu coach Ross Vollmer, who had worked with me, I ended up having to fire him for unethical conduct and for doing some really terrible things, and had started up his own company. I brought him on board, taught him everything, and set him all up, and unfortunately, he decided to do what everybody had warned me he was going to do, and he tried to took our system, literally stole our web design system and our stuff and several clients, and took that, and that happened in March, and so it was hard for me. This is a guy that I was close to for 8 years. He's one of my best friends and somebody I really looked up to, cared a lot about, somebody that I overlooked things that I'd seen him do in the hopes that that he could continue to be a better person, and so when it happened, my wife described it as like basically going through a divorce. It's like this is heavy stuff. This is somebody that you truly cared about and loved as a human, that you overlooked everything to try and help them and be there for them, and so it was pretty painful, having to do that, having to let him go, but then having him turn around and steal these things from us, and then put the blame on me, basically say it was my fault, and so I was having a hard time with that. So it was that was shot one. It was a big shot to my ego. Big shot to my heart, as genuinely, sincerely, it was a big shot to my heart, and so I was struggling with that. And then on June 5th of last year, June 5th of 2023, I actually had to file charges against him. And on June 5th, we were scheduled to do a grand jury indictment hearing to formally indict him on the charges that had been brought against him, multiple felony charges for grand theft and trade secrets type stuff. So June 5th was a Monday. June 3rd, we finished up our regular Saturday practice. I met up with one of my buddies who was actually the deputy that took the case, who actually took the original call for Ross's call. His name was Hunter Bibb, an incredible human being. Thank you, Hunter, for everything you've done for my family. And I had met him. He started training with us. Went and had lunch with him, with our team afterwards, and so everybody else was getting ready to go to one of my students' weddings from the jiu-jitsu school. So Hunter and I, we take showers and we head over and we go to the local place, the local little Mexican place, and we're eating cheese dip and sweet tea, getting ready. And I say, hey guys, I'll be there in a minute. And I hop on the bike and I head out towards the wedding. And I never got there. About 10 minutes after I left, I was coming around a long sweeping curve, about 2 minutes out from the wedding venue. I was on the Ducati, coming around a long sweeping curve. There was gravel in the road. Hit the gravel, tried to save it, back tire re-caught, catapulted me, what's called high siding on a motorcycle. Chest first at about 60 miles an hour, chest first into a cedar tree. Just smack, right in the middle. Broke all of my ribs, effectively. Punctured both of my lungs. Lacerated and ruptured my kidney, spleen, and liver. Broke my pelvis, and I hit so hard. You guys have heard like your standard hernia, like a gonad type hernia. I hit so hard that I have what's called a lumbar hernia. It actually squirted my stomach and my intestines out of my back. And my legs, we don't know if they hit the tree or the bike hit my legs or whatever. We don't really know. But my legs were the equivalent injury of being hit by an IED in the military. Basically blew my legs off pretty much. And I hit so hard, I bounced 50 feet away off the tree and 30 feet down into a rock ravine. And so it was a little bit like a little bit of a plateau, and then it came in, and then it just drops down. And when I hit, I came off the edge, and everything went off the side of the cliff, right? Let's on this little ravine. Bike, backpack, all my stuff, everything just all went off the side. So nobody could see me or hear me. And as guys, there's this thing that we have in our minds for some of us. There's this little feeling of invincibility that we don't really ever talk about. That thing where we're never really gonna have that thing, you know, like it's like it's why women live longer than we do, right? Because we're idiots, you know. We do all these crazy things, and I knew, like, I still had that invincibility complex. And I remember hitting the bottom. I stayed conscious somehow. Insane how, I don't know how. I hit the bottom of the ravine, and when I hit on impact, I hit so hard I basically like vomited into my helmet and everything, like on impact. I hit the bottom and I like pull my helmet off. I'm like, oh Jesus! I'm like, all right, that one's gonna hurt. I'm like, all right, gotta walk this off, right? And I like go to get up and I can't get up. And I go to get up again and I can't get up. And then I like look down and I see my legs, and I see my tibia and my fibia sticking out of my pant leg on one side and my boot on the other side, and my foot sticking out of my boot. And I look down, and I'll never forget that exact split second. And that was the moment I realized that I'm no longer invincible. It was that moment. And so I panicked. I panicked for the first time in a long time. And but the beauty of jiu-jitsu, and this is one of the many reasons why I preach it, is that once you've been choked nearly unconscious, whenever you're getting choked out in jiu-jitsu, you panic. Whenever you've got some 250, 300-pound guy on you squashing you into oblivion, you start to hyperventilate, right? Everything starts closing in, you get claustrophobic, and you panic. But what happens is after you've been through that a few hundred or a few thousand times, over time you start learning how to get a hold of that panic and control it, and start figuring out how to work your way out of the situation. And so, luckily for me, because of these things, I've like started to panic, but then I got it under control, and calm myself down, and I'm like, all right, start calling for help. I can hear a couple cars come by. Nobody can see me. They can't hear me. And I realize one of the major truths of life that nobody will ever want to tell you. It's sad, but once you accept it, it's so incredibly freeing in your life and your mind. And that is the truth that nobody is coming to save you. That's the truth. Not your wife, not your friends, not your kids, not your family, not your government. Nobody's coming to save you. You have to save you. In every aspect of your life, that's just the truth. Not saying that it's not amazing to have partners and support systems and all these other things, but the truth is, at the end of the day, you have to save you.
True.
Whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you have to save you. And so that moment hit.
Before you go, because I want to double click on that real quick. So you had mentioned in a post this past week about trying to locate somebody who helped you.
Yes.
I want to ask about that. I want to ask, were you able to find that person? And then also, you just said something I think that was interesting. I heard you say this. And I agree with the premise that at the end of the day, you've got to save yourself. But I also would tell you, from an outsider looking in, I don't know if you would be here today if it wasn't for your wife.
Oh, absolutely not. Not a chance.
Not
a chance. Yeah.
Like, you know this. I don't have to tell you this. But you've got a great one, right? A ride or die there with you. And I don't have to tell you that you know that. But I just wanted to say, because I'm sure you give her all the kudos in the world. I'm sure she gets it. But I don't think there's anybody who can say enough how special of a woman you have that's been there for you the way she has since that day. And I'm sure before that day, but since that day, that's a true test of a character. That's a true test of that. The man you were before that day is not the man you are today. Not that you're less of a man, but you're a different man.
Different.
And that she's still right there with you, maybe even more with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So make a note of that. Actually, I want to make sure we come back to that because I want to talk about one of the other little things that guys have in the back of our mind that we never talk about.
Okay.
Like we'll have a TED talk on relationships right quick, right? So let's get to the part without talking to the guy we're looking for, right? But yes, I do agree with you. If it were not for my wife, I would not be sitting here right now, 1,000%. And so that's where the support system and everything else comes into play because that's what helped me get there and what helped me get back. But when I say, right, specifically to try to clarify, so when I say nobody's coming to save you, people can help you and people can help support you and they can help you get back up. But they cannot do that until you choose to save yourself first.
100%.
Right? You can't help somebody who's not willing to help themselves. And unless you are willing to look at yourself and drag yourself out of your own ditch, nobody else can help you. Once you decide to do that, then they can help you. But you have to make that choice. Right? Give up or get up. It's that simple. And for me, giving up just was never an option. It just wasn't the way you've rolled with me. You know how I am. I'm just not made that way.
Unfortunately, I have, yeah.
I just don't quit. So I'm sitting there, I've come to the realization that I'm obviously no longer invincible. I got to get everything under control, get the panic under control. I'm like, all right, you got to figure this out. So get up. It's like whatever wrestling coach tells you, just get up, right? And I realized I couldn't. I was pinned upside down. I couldn't move. And I realized that I was going to have to do the unthinkable. And I couldn't move my legs. So I had to lean forward, shovel my shoulders a little bit, and I had to get to where I could lean forward, and I had to pick up my legs with my hands. I had to lean down and pick up my own legs and kind of flop them over and shuffle them over a little bit to where I could get turned to where I could do it a couple times and finally get them to flop over to get over onto my stomach and to get turned up towards the top of the hill. And then I just put my elbows in and just started crawling and dragged myself up out of the ravine. About 45-degree angle, somewhere around 40 yards or so to get me up and out of there. So I get up to the side of the hill and I flop down. My leg is all over the place. It's crazy. So I flop down on my back to try and set my leg down on the side because I'm in excruciating pain at this point. And the first guy slows down and stops and looks over. And middle-aged guy, white guy, and like a really nice F-150. And looks over across the road and says, "Hey, I can call 911, but I can't stay." And I remember looking up and I'm like, What? And luckily for me, immediately behind him pulls up another guy, this little Latino guy, man. Little bitty two-wheel drive, little two-door pickup truck. This is the guy that we're looking for. We've never found him. But anyway, this guy pulls up, beat up little truck. Looks like it's got like 500, 600,000 miles on the dang thing. And out pops this little Mexican guy, like 145 pounds, maybe soaking wet. And he looks like he's got as many miles on him as the truck has. Like, looks like he's like super, sun worn. Like he probably worked in one of the fields around here in one of the wineries or something like that. Maybe he could have been illegal, maybe not. I don't know. But I tell you, I don't care. My guardian angel is a little Mexican man. True story. And he came across the road. He sat down Indian style next to me, up next to my shoulder. He dialed 911 on his phone. He couldn't even speak English. He dialed 911 on his phone. And he held it down to me and let me talk to the operator. He couldn't speak English, but he spoke human. That man saved my life. And I owe him everything. And yes, if anybody hears this story, it was off of Hilmer Young Lane in Fredericksburg, Texas. There's a little Spanish community that's back there. Maybe he was there visiting family. Maybe he lived back there. We're not really sure. But I would love to have the word out. I would love to meet this man to say thank you for saving my life. We did actually eventually, over a year later, we actually accidentally ended up finding out who the other guy was. I will leave his name anonymous. But let's just say my wife knows who he is. I'm at ease by it, though. I'm at ease with it. I have no anger towards this man. I have no anger towards him. I have no anger towards Ross and all his stuff or anything, even at this point either. Like, I have no anger in my life towards these people. life is too short to hold on to that poison, you know? But anyway, so all this goes down. I get, care flighted down to BAMC. I'm in the helicopter. Apparently I'm talking trash the whole way down in the helicopter. Jay being Jay. Surprise, surprise. We get down, we land on the top of the helipad, and they're getting ready to bring me into the elevator. I'm like, oh, wait. I'm like, my wife, her name is Stephanie. Her number is 404-915, ... Please call her. She's going to be so pissed. And the doors close, and then I don't remember anything for weeks. And this is the part where a lot of people don't understand. When they look at somebody like me and they're like, man, you've been through so much. Think about what my wife has been through.
Yeah.
My wife, I died multiple times in the hospital. Somehow managed to make it through, but I was not there anymore. I'm gone. The gym has to be run. Coaches have to be found. X8, my web design company, people have to be paid. People have to be taken care of. Clients, questions, stuff everywhere. Family members trying to come in and out of town. Family members that can't be around each other, trying to worry about all that. People that are trying to make it all about them and everything that she's trying to manage. Trying to manage finances, trying to manage all of my medical decisions. She's having to do all of this, all under the distress, driving an hour and a half back and forth every day from Fredericksburg to San Antonio, where they had me in the hospital, every day, going through all of this, under all this duress and all this stress, all while having to deal with the fact that her husband is lying on his deathbed, and she's dealing with all this, and she's dealing with all this alone. I'm not strong. My wife is strong. And a lot of people don't realize the trauma that those people go through. The caregivers, the support people, the people that are there. They don't understand that. So if you want to look up to somebody, don't look up to me. Look up to my wife. She's impressive.
You're impressive too, though. But I agree. Very impressive, your wife. And I'm very impressed with her. I'm very impressed with you for having a wife like that, because I think the wife is a mirror to the husband, and the husband is a mirror to the wife, right? So
I
Matt
just got lucky.
Yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. I think you create the life around you, and I think you've done a great job of creating that life around you for a reason. Matt, it's the first time you've heard this story. What questions do you have?
I think what you said, that everything happens for a reason. You being here is incredible. Matt, you don't know this, but I actually lost a childhood friend of mine, I think it was a year ago, to a motorcycle accident.
Oh, wow.
And he fought. Yeah. He fought very hard. He didn't make it. And so the fact that you're here right now is a miracle. It's you're here for a reason, and I'm glad you're here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
That was an incredible story. I don't have any questions. That was an incredible story that you have here. So besides taking away from the motorcycle accident here, what you went through this whole entire year, but one of the things that you keep saying, and I think that it's important in life in general, but we'll bring it to like an entrepreneurial side of things, is that you're a fighter, and that you don't quit, and that I think that mentality, and I want you to speak on this too, is you have to carry that into an entrepreneurship. That comes into entrepreneurship, because we do things every single day that are boring, that are the things that we have to continue to do over and over again. That people quit when they have to do these things. Yep. So talk to me about that mindset you carry into your business here with X8 and your gym and everything else.
Well, I appreciate those words, and yeah, I mean, it's so true. People that are entrepreneurs, like, one thing you have to understand when you're going to be an entrepreneur is that you're getting on the roller coaster. That never changes. Your bank account is going to do this. Yeah. It's going to go everywhere. That's just the way it's going to be. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to know that you're strapping in for that roller coaster. I've had my bank account go negative, back to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, back down to $2,000, back up to $60,000, and all in the same day before. Like, it's crazy, man. In the only thing that happens is that as you grow and you get bigger, the numbers just fluctuate bigger. But you have to understand that you're getting on that ride, and that it's going to require grit. You're going to have that. And if you don't, then this just no offense, but this is just not the world for you. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? There are, we all function differently. All of us have different mindsets, but in order to be successful as a business owner, You have to be ready for that mindset. You have to be willing to dedicate yourself to knowing that there are going to be nights when you're going to be eating steak and there are going to be nights when you're going to be eating ramen. And that's just the way it's going to be. And it will be like that forever. It will always be that way. You know, you can be successful and you can have a very successful life and, you know, in a lot of different ways. But the truth is that that will always still be a part of it. You may have bigger things that you've accomplished and, you know, possessions and, you know, whatever these things are that make you feel successful. But the funny thing is that as you become more successful over time, what I've found is that as I've done better financially, the less I cared about the financial part personally, which is kind of funny, right?
Absolutely. No, I think that when you know, and this is a question that we'll ask later in. So we don't have to answer the question now, but I think when you find your why and you find your purpose and your purpose is more than money, then that's when I think you really are able to take the next jump and level in regards to that. When you're working for something more than just a paycheck, because a paycheck is an empty thing. A paycheck is a fleeting thing. You know, I try to tell at least young people who focus on the material things in life, and I say, go buy that dream car. Within 6 months, it'll just be a car. Go buy that dream house. Within 6 months, it'll just be a house. But when you're working towards other things that you can build on, those things mean a whole lot more to you. If I look back at my career, and Jay, I'm sure you're like this as well, and I say, hey, what are the 10 most things you're proud of? More than half of them are other people and the impact I made on their life.
Yeah.
More than the things that I've done professionally or the things that I've accomplished or the things I've gathered in material possessions. Those things mean nothing in the grand scheme of things.
I couldn't agree more. And you know, funnily enough, you know, when you say that, like one of my biggest achievements that has happened for me is, you know, two of my team members that work with us, they just built their house and paid for their house through the money they've made at X8, 100% on the system that we've built. And I just am like, man, that's so damn cool, man. Like, you guys built your own house off of what we built out of nothing. This was nothing but an idea. And now it is a thing. It is a living, breathing thing. And you guys built your house off of it. I just think that's so cool, you know?
It is. It is. Yeah, that's entrepreneurialism. I don't know how many people talk about it, but I care a lot about the team and their livelihoods and what they're doing. And I feel a lot of weight on my shoulders about that too as well. Like when we have down months, like that weighs on me, not just for me and my family, but for them. And we have great months. I'm happy. I'm very happy. I promise. I say this to my people all the time. Like, I'm happy to send that paycheck. I'm happy to send that money to you. I love doing it. So that means a lot, and that shows that you're a good boss, or not. You're not a boss. Yeah, a good partner. To a partner.
Don't say the E word. I call it the E word. Don't say that E word. The E word is the F word for me, and don't say the E word. Yeah, IRS, you didn't hear that. There are no E's in this.
Yeah. So you're a great leader within your organization for that, and I'm sure the people that work with you, the reason why they work so hard and why you have a great team is because of your leadership within it.
Well, all right, so Matt, let's transition over the questions. I got a couple questions I want to run into, unless there's anything else you want to add before we go there.
No, so one last thing I do want to add is on that is, you know, I want to make sure that we came back to one of the other psychological things about the wreck and everything. So I want to show you guys something real quick, if it'll let me, just to show you guys so that you guys can see.
I don't know if it can share.
Yeah, I've never had anybody share it on the podcast here, but I hope it works. If not, we'll send over the infographic to us and we'll.
Yeah, it's okay. I just wanted to see if it will let it do it. Oh, never mind. It'll have to quit and run. But anyway, I'll show you guys the picture later. I'll send it to you guys, and it's a picture that'll show you guys the difference of what I looked like when I won Worlds. I was
going to send that to Matt offline. I was looking for a picture of you at the right there post, and then the picture of you at the Jiu-Jitsu championships, like, you know, doing that big. Yeah, I was going to show him.
So I'll show it to you guys really quickly, just for the people that are on the subscribers on the cast, so they can see just really quickly the differentiation between the two. So this is the difference of what I looked like when I went into the hospital versus when I came out.
And how long of a time frame is that between those two?
So I was 220 pounds, 6% or 7% body fat. That was World Championship. And then that other picture, I looked the same. I looked the same from the World Championship to the day of the wreck. When that picture was taken was less than 3 months from the date of the wreck to that new picture. I went from 220 pounds, 67% body fat, to 130 pounds. And
What
it
are
was
you
insane.
now? What are you now?
I'm right now. I'm about 200, or so. So I got about another 20 to go, but just slowly getting there, just getting my strength and everything back. A little bit at a time. So, at least now I don't look like a ghost. Like the first time I saw myself in the mirror, I cried. When the first time I saw myself, like for the first time, and like I was super gaunt. Like my cheeks were sunken in.
Yeah.
It was insane. I looked like a ghost. It was crazy.
At that point in time, Jay, did you put a lot of? I assume you did. Assume you did at the time, but did you put a lot of value in your looks?
Yeah, I did. Oh
Sure.
yeah,
You put a
absolutely,
lot
I
of
did.
work
I was.
into it, so I assumed it mattered. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I was very proud of what I looked like. I was very proud of of my accomplishments in life, and and I was definitely very much so a very proud man, and there's nothing that will serve you up a humble dose of a big piece of humble pie, like waking up in the morning and looking down and realizing that you don't have a leg, it's but that actually kind of segues into the last thing that I did want to say something about is that there's this thing, and we were talking about like the financial successes versus the things that we're proud of that we've accomplished, and and I think it's a bigger societal thing in some ways as well, right? Is because as men in America, we're taught from a very young age that if you want the things that make you successful in life, right? You want the wife that you want the cars and the house and these things that you have to obtain these resources, and you have to focus so much of your life around, making money and these financials and your physical appearance and these different aspects. But what it also does is that it also creates the inverse. And that builds a consistent little piece in the back of our minds, this forever insecurity that tells us as men that when we do not any longer have those things, that we will no longer have that partner, that spouse, that house, that car, the things that made us successful. When we no longer are producing money or doing these things, that we no longer have those things, or we no longer deserve those. This is literally what we're taught in our culture, that when we no longer do that, we no longer deserve these things. And what it does is it creates, and this is something that most men will never really talk about, but in men, it creates this little piece of insecurity in the back of our minds. That when I am no longer doing that, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my wife, my kids. I'm going to lose everything.
You no
right?
longer have worth. Like you feel like
Yes.
Your value.
Yeah. Your value has been removed. Because as men, we are not taught that our value is based upon our ethics and our morals. We are taught that our value is based on our bank account.
And what we provide. Yep.
Yeah, I think provide and protect. I think that's, in my mind, that's what a man is to do, is to provide and to protect. Yep. And I think at a point, you're right, Jay, you were probably a lead at both of those things, right? And then there was a
I told my students every day. Literally, I ended my classes with protect and provide for your families.
Yeah.
Like, if you do nothing else in this world, do that. And I'm not saying that I disagree with that, but I am saying that there's something more than that as well. And so what happens, right, is this whole deal, this whole concept, right, it creates this insecurity in the back of our minds, creates it creates a fear of commitment on top of that for a lot of men, because they're afraid to commit to relationships, to marriage. And even when they're married, a lot of men never fully commit truly 100% all in to that marriage, because they have that little fear in the back of their mind that, well, what if? That little what if, Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's great that you mentioned that too. And a lot of us other men, sometimes are never going to be faced with the circumstances to test that loyalty on the other side. And that's one thing I think that in all of this, a blessing in disguise for you is you're able to test the loyalty of your wife, that knows that if the protection side falls, if the providing side falls, whether it be temporarily or permanent, I think you have no doubt that your wife is by your side regardless.
Yeah. I no longer have that fear. And so, right, and you're spot on, because it allows me, it allowed me to finally completely free my mind to be absolutely committed. There is no There is no plan B. There is no backup. There is no ulterior. This is it. It's her or nothing. And so I've been able to free my mind of that doubt and that insecurity and dedicate my entire being, my entire existence to the success of my family.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And bringing positive things to them and to the world. And no longer have that little nagging thing holding me back. And so that's just the one thing that I wanted to, the other thing that I'd wanted to touch on, because I just think that, as men, I think it's important for us to identify those things, those insecurities that cause us to not fully commit our actions to the best versions of ourselves.
That's awesome. Great advice there. All right, so we got a little over 5 minutes. We're going to run through a couple of questions. So these are rapid fire response.
Let's
I'll start
go.
first. Jay, can you be too tough?
Absolutely, man. To your own detriment, yes. Listen to the people around you. They care about you, and they're telling you to slow down for a damn reason.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that answer.
Go ahead. Do you believe you attract all-star talent, or do you build it, or both?
Ooh, both. I think some people will surprise you with how capable they truly are, and how much potential they have. But unfortunately, it's like anything in this world. It just takes time and chance, and you just got to give them the opportunity. And you're just gonna have to sift through a lot of bad apples to get to the few good ones, and that's just the nature of life. You're gonna, I've been through probably 50 callers at this point, and I've gotten a couple, like 2 or 3 good ones. But that's what it takes, and you just gonna have to recognize that that's just anything in life. Growth requires discomfort. You're gonna have to keep hammering.
If you have one characteristic you look for in a person to add to your current team, what's the one most important thing you look for?
Genuine.
Okay.
They have to be genuine human beings, and I think that that's probably the number one thing that makes some people get annoyed with me, but I think it's the number one best selling point, is because if you sit here and talk with me, anybody that sits here and listens to us, you know for a fact that what you see is what you get, and that you can know that I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's what I want from my team, is I want them to be genuine. I don't care if it's good news or bad news. Just be genuine, be honest. Show some compassion while you're doing it, but be genuine and be honest. You can be honest without being a dick.
And so you spoke about this beforehand, about why you hated red tape and why you hated the big businesses and everything like that, because of how ineffective they were and how inefficient they were. So give us 3 tips on building an efficient and effective team.
You got to keep everything lean. You got to keep things lean. You got to keep things lightweight. 2, you have to marry the benefits to the behavior, right? If you want people to behave, or you want them to do or contribute in a certain way, then you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? If you say, "Hey, I want you to crush it in life. I want you to make a ton of money," well, then pay them accordingly, or give them success factors, right? Give them a ridiculously high, compensation package, or give them a ridiculously high commission rate, right? Give them the opportunity. Don't give it to them. Give them the opportunity. If anybody that works for me, they're not going to get a $100,000 job. They're going to get the opportunity to earn $100,000. And there is a difference.
Jay, who's your
hero? The right
hero?
to pursue happiness, not the right to happiness.
There you go. Jay, who's your hero?
Oh man, I got a bunch of them, man. It's so hard. I would have to say 2 of my biggest heroes are Dr. Raymond Kessler, my ortho, and Dr. Julie Rizzo. Dr. Julie Rizzo is about 4'11". She's a multiple-time deployed Marine combat medic out of BAMC San Antonio. The baddest chick I've ever met in my life. She saved my leg, and she saved my life, man. That chick, absolutely 100% my hero. But above all, it's got to be my wife, all the way.
Love that. Awesome. Let me ask you one other question, then, and then we'll move to our final 2 questions. What is your why, Jay?
My why, definitely, my wife is obviously, above all, my number one. But my why is, I say this all the time in our business, because I actually give a shit. That's my why. Because I care. I give a shit. I want people to be happy. I want people to live a healthy, happy life. I genuinely want that for other people. And I think that my purpose in this life was to learn how to do so, and hopefully try to help other people do the same without forcing them to do it my way. Because my way is not the only way.
So what's your 1 year, 5 year, and 20-year goal?
Oh, man. 1 year goal in 2025, I want us to be, we've done a great job really crushing the Texas market. for a lot of reasons. We also operate in Georgia and Florida. In 2025, I want to absolutely annihilate the panhandle of Florida and Georgia on a professional level. But on a personal level, in 2025, I want to be able to walk in a pair of pants and you not even be able to tell I'm missing a leg.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you were missing a leg just from us talking right here. If that makes you feel better.
Well, the only answer I would have rather heard you say is to tell me when you're winning that next world championship.
So
Is
we're
another
working on it.
competition in your future?
There is. I'm actually competing already again on January 18th. I'm intending to, assuming I have to have another couple more surgeries, so assuming surgeries don't keep me out of it. But I've actually already been accepted to the U.S. Jiu-Jitsu team, and assuming that surgeries allow me to do so, I plan on winning the U.S. Jiu-Jitsu World Championships in Abu Dhabi next year.
That's awesome.
Wow. All right, last question.
I just didn't really count that one as being that important because the other ones are more important to me.
Completely
That was
get
not
it.
that big of a one.
Yeah. So last question we always ask everybody, and you kind of already answered it, but we always end the podcast with, at the end of the day, when you're about to breathe your last breath, Jay, what do you want your legacy to be?
Happiness. Man, I've really had to think a lot about this one because, when I was in the hospital, there was one moment where I was awake and I remember dying. I remember the moment. And, people have different experiences in that moment. And for me, it was just nothing. It was like somebody just cut the switch off, and then when I came back, they cut it back on. It wasn't black. It wasn't white. It wasn't dark. It wasn't light. It was just nothing. And when you look back and you realize who you've been to that point, and you realize I was gone, if that was what I left behind, am I proud of what I left behind? And so I would say that, it's like if you were to die today, have you acted in a way that makes you proud of what you've done for other people? And I live every single day of my life at that like that now. I want to be proud. If I drop dead tomorrow, I'm proud of what I've tried to do. Even if I got it done yet or not, at least I'm trying, and I'm proud of what I tried to do today.
Yeah, Jay. That was a great way to end this podcast because you hear about people saying that all the time. What do you leave behind when you, at the end of the day, are you happy with it? But hearing that from somebody who almost left it all behind at one point and is now here to do it, again, it hits a lot harder. Jay, thank you, man. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for coming on here and talking about your business and what you've been doing consistently for it and how you run your team and your leadership. I learned a lot from that. Was a very impactful conversation just in general about your life and about us as men also. So I appreciate that. Guys, for anybody who is looking to get a hold of Jay, we will make sure that we have all links for website, social media, any way to contact Jay within the description of the podcast here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the alert button if you're looking to hear more podcasts just like this. Jay, seriously, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. This was a great conversation.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to an old man run his mouth too long. I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one, all right?
Thank you, buddy.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.